somebody was almost complaining where it's like we're all being siphoned into these buckets of habits and things.
It's not humanly possible for anyone to actually have done that without AI. That's the game changer here, is that it really turns data analysis on its head.
All that data together, again, just can pull out insights which you don't have to have the questions prepared already. You don't have to go, okay, well, these are my questions. Can AI answer these questions for me? It can give you insights, that you may not even be aware of.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a new year, 2025. We are back at our great AI podcast with your hosts, myself, Makoto Kern, Brynley, and Joe.
Hey,
How you
hey.
guys doing?
And we are in 2025 now, a quarter of a
Yes.
century into 2000.
We have flying robots and walking cars.
Yeah.
No, but it's great to be back and into this new year, and excited to see where AI and all these good technology things are going to take us this year.
It's always fun to discuss it. So
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
For sure. And so with this, our first podcast of the year, what we're going to be talking about today is basically you're sitting on digital gold. The data and the things that surround and power your AI for your company. That's something that we'll be talking about, of how to identify what that data looks like, and a lot of the things around that you can actually leverage that to make your AI a lot more powerful and useful for your organization. So with that, I think we'll, Joe, if you want to kick it off and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of got about 5 different sections to go through here. Just how I've grouped it, sort of understanding what we are really talking about here, like what is data, how does that relate to AI, and really what this means for any sort of business or anyone who has existing data that they've been sitting on for years potentially. That's, traditional systems, databases, capturing software, anything that you've been using, that you've been storing data with over time. That's really what we're talking about just in terms of data. And traditionally, trying to get insights or extract value out of that data has been a very hard, challenging thing to do. You would either have to sort of, grab extremely expert systems to help you with this, or data scientists, or get a whole bunch of IT guys with a lot of understanding of how to go through that data. And there's 2 parts to it, because it's really, understanding what data you actually have, what is this data, and really what value can we actually extract out of this. And sometimes you may not know both sides of that. They both have their own sort of domains of understanding. You may even really understand your data really well, but you're like, well, how can we use this data? Like, what can it actually do for us? And so what's really changed in the last few years, especially recently with just how AI has exploded, is the ability to actually answer both those sides of the sort of the question and the answer of what data do I have and what value and insights can I extract out of it. And AI has become an amazing tool that's most importantly cost efficient and effective to implement to actually answer those. Previously, again, as I said, really expensive, really challenging, whereas now it's just becoming way more accessible and really a low barrier of entry too. You don't have to sort of, hire an AI expert or someone who's, been in AI for 20 years. There's software out there which is just built from the ground up to really understand, and you can just plug on top of your existing systems and it can just start going through that data and understanding it for you. And you can just see what happens. It's such a low barrier to entry that you can kind of just start implementing these systems and just see what comes out of it and just see where you strike gold. Because again, this is what we're kind of trying to say here, is that you've got your whole fields of data, but there's gold inside there, right? There's oil, data is like the new oil of the modern age, and you can strike it really rich, from a value perspective for your business. And this whole time you've just been unaware that's been sitting there. It can be, an interesting way of thinking of it, because again, you may not even be aware of it. This is something that you can just discover yourself. So that's kind of what we're talking about with, data and knowledge. Yeah, I don't know if Makoto and Bryn, as I have that introduction, just sort of passing it back to you guys, from a business perspective, how do you see that sort of adding value to it? Like if you were, to sort of take the role of a business and you're sort of asking me these questions, what are the questions you have around this? Like, can you give me some use cases, or what do you think about it, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, I think from what we've seen, I don't know, Makoto, if you wanted to add something first, but point I had is for what we've seen with clients and in experience firsthand is so many people are unaware of what they have, and it's in the the strangest places often. It can be something as straightforward as database that is recorded from a sales system, and it's straightforward. Or it can be tapping into data based on your business, like social media posts or things that you wouldn't think about mining for valuable data. And even larger clients, your bigger
Mm.
corporations that have a lot of internal data, they're often met with that sort of balance of, well, is it worth hiring people to review this data, and how much return on investment are we going to get once I've paid X number of people to review the data? Whereas now, as you're saying, Joe, you can plug in and get immediate insight. So whether it's pulling back social media reviews to see, well, people are complaining about something specific, maybe long wait times, for your coffee shop, or
Yeah.
it's pulling back that there's a particular feature of your application that needs to be refined. So the applications are so widespread. And now that, again, just highlighting what you said, bringing down the barriers to entry, you don't need a whole team to spend hours and hours sifting through data. It's now you can present the data to the right type of AI and actually gain those insights very quickly. That can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think the digital pickaxes and shovels that you need to figure out what those are to, I think, mine the data. It seems like it's pattern recognition for the most part. I think we're thinking like some of our clients in cybersecurity. If you see certain patterns occurring, you have a human identifying whether that is, if it's a real or if it's an anomaly or if it's been flagged wrong, incorrectly, or something where you're trying to maximize the time because of the large amount of, let's say, attacks that are happening onto a server or a system. So you want them to be really focused on something that is of like high value versus of low value. So it's kind of essentially like what a dashboard I see is for human beings. You're trying to identify actionable insights so they can really optimize what they can do. With AI understanding like that data and training it to recognize those things, you're essentially building like a dashboard AI for itself or for the data itself to maximize who's ever doing that work. And it seems like it could be, I mean, it's any type of detection of, from like manufacturing, like if you're building widgets, you recognize some kind of error through vision systems to,
Mm.
it could be, I think, I'm sure you're going to talk about this example. Obviously, like Spotify, Netflix, they have recommendations.
Mm.
And it was interesting where I read something where somebody was almost complaining where it's like we're all being siphoned into these buckets of habits and things because AI is recognizing, oh, you watch these movies, you listen to this type of music, this is going to be for
Mm.
you.
Mm.
But you don't have that individualized thing where you're like, oh, this is what everybody else that I know listens to the exact same playlist, the same
Mm.
songs. I want to hear something different. So I think
Mm.
it's going to improve. That's how I see like where data can be really useful in understanding that kind of pattern recognition for whatever
Yeah.
business you're in.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And I've even got like, just to take a sort of step to a more practical approach, I'll just sort of read through some, example use cases of how AI could help a business.
Mhm.
Again, using our existing data. This isn't something new. You don't have to sort of implement a system that has to start creating this data for you and you only see value in a few years. You've got the value already. This is just about unlocking it. So let's just take the example of a software company, right? That sells software. And I'll just sort of go through 5 kind of areas around this that, exactly what we're talking about here, where you can actually extract that value. And as Bryn mentioned earlier, Makoto, you mentioned too, things like demand forecasting, right? Predict seasonal demand for your software. Maybe you have tax software. Obviously, there's a definite season for that. And that seems like a straightforward one. Okay, it's tax season. Obviously, I'm going to sell more. But it becomes a bit more than that, right? Because you can start using it seems like a simple use case, but there's a lot that actually goes around that. There's a lot that's built into that, right? It's your server capacity, it's your support staff, it's your anticipated, website hits, your sales agents, all of that feeds into it. And if your software is a bit more ambiguous, And you may have spikes throughout the year. Maybe you're writing software that helps restaurants manage stock inventory, and there's certain as the year goes by and certain events happen, or something a bit more nuanced, you're going to need to understand, okay, well, how many support staff will I need? How many more sales agents should I bring in for this next quarter? And it can be hard to answer that question. And if you have the experience in it and you have the existing sort of, use cases built up around this, sure. But if this is something that's a bit more nuanced, you want to be able to try and do predictions on that, right? And this is what I'm saying around demand forecasting. Like, okay, let's look at our previous data. Let's see what it looked like. Let's see, okay, what did it look like when we had 5 agents? Were we able to get through all our support cases quickly enough? During this time of the year, what about, in a month's time? What about in 2 months' time? What about in 2 years' time? Where do we see these trends going? Can I be a bit preemptive around this? So any kind of forecasting is just great for this, because again, it's looking at all different aspects to it and understanding, okay, even the supporting infrastructure around your product, how can you scale that up to sort of meet that demand, and how can you predict that demand coming up and be ready for it, right? So that's an example of demand forecasting. You've got the data ready, it's there, perfect use case. And yeah, Brynley and Makoto, chime in if you have anything to add about these as I go through them.
Yeah,
But another one, obviously, is churn prediction, analyzing user activity to identify customers who are not fully utilizing their subscriptions or showing signs of dissatisfaction. This one can be extremely nuanced, right? This is a bit more nuanced than even the first one, because how can you decide, or how can you determine if someone's unhappy with how they're using your software? It's not obvious. It's not like they're, sending through really unhappy support requests and saying, this software sucks and, I hate it. And, they're canceling their subscriptions. You can kind of sort of see these patterns emerging from the behavior. When originally they got their software, they're logging in every, 2 days. Now it's every day. And now it's every, week. Or it could be even like, less nuanced. They log into it every day, but they sort of, not really using the full suite of what your software can offer, and they're only using a small niche part. And that niche part may have a lot of competitors within your market. And you sort of realize, okay, if this is the value that most of my subscribers are, pulling out of my software, I really need to, put more marketing and a bit more push behind what else my software can do, because obviously we can see that that's not being used to its potential and we could lose these customers. Or just sort of seeing, just general trends and how they're interacting with your support staff, even something as nuanced as that, just understanding all their social media sort of interactions and how social media is sort of talking about your product. And that can be something that's extremely hard. That's a lot of data, right? Especially when it comes to social media. You're not talking about, analyzing a few support cases. You're talking about analyzing, 10 different social media platforms across, 10 different sites. That data is existing. It's there. We can, pull value out of that, look in the history and sort of see. Let's look at our 100 customers that we lost last quarter and actually look at all their trends, look at their social media, look at how they use the software. Let's build up a model around what that looks like, and then start seeing, can we predict, are other customers going down this road too? Let's try and get ahead of that and try and understand, what's happening here, and put resolutions in place for that. So again,
that's an interesting,
just amazing.
That's an interesting point. Just thinking, when we're building something for like conversion rates for clients that, they're trying to increase subscription rates, and they're trying to, let's say they're competing against other companies that are selling the same thing, same service, or same whatever. It could be insurance, it could be energy, it could be whatever. And it's interesting to see, like, I'm sure when you talk to customer service, you're going to get the same kind of problems that they're going to complain about. Oh, the price is too high. Why did it change? Things like that, where the customer services then walk through a set of like how to answer these kind of negative things. With the AI, just identifying those things through the feedback or through the data, you can then anticipate that in the future, knowing like, hey, we know that during this time prices increase, so we're going to send this out automatically to these clients and let them know like this is normal, or whatever the case is, or this is why, and be like transparent. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of like automation that can happen because of that. And that's going to be really important to mine that data and to know those things.
And the amazing thing is too, sorry, just a quick sentence around data, just to sort of push the point too. When we're talking around like, AI looking at your data, it's not like AI looking at your one database or your one CMS system, or, it's taking all of these different systems, the data from all of them, putting it all together and sort of applying AI on top of that. And it can sort of understand the intricacies between that data, understand like, what connects all that together, and all that together, looking at each of those data points individually may not help you understand, why that customer left you. But looking at it all together, essentially, like there are actually connection points between all the different data points, and understanding, okay, their usage across all this data, how they interact with the system, how they interact with your support, how they interacted with their sales, their usage, all these different systems feeding together into one great view of them and their usage.
Mm.
And AI can really extract then the sort of outcome from that and help you sort of predict going forward. So again, it's just around, great looking at large amounts of data, which traditionally would be extremely hard to go through because there's just so much. It's almost impossible to try and make those
That's
connections for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add, is that I think it's important for anyone listening to understand that AI has surpassed the limit of what a human team can do. So you think, if you're bringing certain models to the table to do analysis, you're bringing with them a whole lot of general knowledge. So, what are other common trends that people have documented in a whole lot of different industries? It's almost like bringing someone into the team that has a whole lot of experience across different sectors. It can reference all those use cases immediately. And then you say to them, right, what would have taken, a team of 100 a few years to go through on really large data sets, this is going to go through in, hours, and then come back with all these insights that it's not humanly possible for anyone to
Yeah.
actually have done that without AI. That's the game changer here, is that
Yeah.
it really turns data analysis on its head, and why your data that you may have been sitting on for ages and not have really reaped the rewards from it is now this new currency in really the success of your business. And I think that's an important kind of take home, is that now there are tools that do make it a game changer.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a few more to go through. Again, something like customer feedback analysis, using AI to analyze customer reviews or support tickets to identify frequent complaints about your software. And this can be really great because, again, this isn't necessarily churn. It's just understanding where to focus, where to put your energy as a sort of, a resource of your company. Where should you focus on next? And that can be things like prioritizing feature updates, fixes, based on that sort of customer feedback. And again, based on the usage too. You may think a certain area of your software is not being used at all, but when you start looking at the data and actually understanding the usage patterns, even if customers maybe only go there very rarely, it's still really important to them. And just understanding, okay, maybe we should actually put more features or functionality or effort into sort of improving this feature, because we can, from the data, actually get insights that, okay, it's not used a lot, but when we see it, not when it's down or there's bugs, suddenly customers are just emailing it very quickly, which shows that they actually have a large investment into that part of your software. And that's, again, something very nuanced you wouldn't have been able to sort of detect yourself just by looking at traditional ways of looking at system usage. Oh, these are my top sort of most clicked on buttons on my application or screens that have been visited. This one's way down at number 20. We shouldn't worry about that. But AI can help you really understand, no, there's sometimes a lot of value in what you already have that just wouldn't have been evidenced without sort of understanding the bigger picture and how it all feeds together
Yeah.
with your customers and how they interact with you.
That is good, because I think something that we've spoken about in the past, personal bias, really builds on this. I mean, you think if you've got a large support team, you've got 100 support staff. Now they're tasked with determining what is a complaint or what is a feature request. Now they all have completely different views and completely different sensitivities as to what constitutes a complaint and what is just a bit of feedback. So, even with that example, you can aggregate all of that feedback that's been documented. It may have not been flagged correctly. Some may have seen one thing as a feature request, another thing as a complaint, when it wasn't the case. That can all be grouped and correctly categorized under a sort of standard measurement almost, which is just creating these insights that you wouldn't have been able to get by relying on the manual kind of feedback systems that are traditionally used.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just around the same point, it's always, again, not just about looking at one set of data, it's like looking at the whole picture. So let's say in that example I just had about trying to determine where to put your effort into your system, it's looking at not just the usage in your system, like maybe your Panda analytics. It's not just looking at your support queries coming in, but it's looking at other areas too, which you may not even be aware of, like, where are customers clicking on your website? What documentation are they visiting? What level of users, the expert users visiting one area of a system or new users visiting one area of a system? And all that data together, again, just can pull out insights which you don't have to have the questions prepared already. You don't have to go, okay, well, these are my questions. Can AI answer these questions for me? It can give you insights that you may not even be aware of, and actually like sort of help you prioritize parts of your business which you may not even have been aware that needed prioritization. That's really the power of it, to sort of again come up with the questions and answers at the same time for you, which you weren't even aware were already there. So another 2 months just to quickly go through here, just again, use cases, pricing optimization, adjust subscription pricing dynamically based on demand, customer willingness to pay, competitors' offerings. Great use case again, just, looking at the whole industry, looking at your particular software, its trends over time, the type of customer coming in, what else have they interacted with maybe in your product suite that they've already been using, what was their behavior and usage like in those areas, how did they come into your site? This is just all around marketing, understanding your customers. So much data there. And again, just a perfect use case to be able to understand pricing optimization. And then just last one, automate reporting and insights. Generate real-time usage analytics for your customers, showing them how to use your software to improve their ROI. Provide internal business performance dashboards, track sales trends, customer retention, and product engagement metrics. Again, pretty much what we're just going on, but the ability to sort of provide this or show this data in such a meaningful way, which previously would have just been extremely challenging to try and understand that visually, or to try and present that data to customers, or try and sort of show that value in a tangible way that you can actually build up action items against that data. Previously would have been extremely hard to go through. Even if you have the data, even if you know the questions, just what are our next steps? How do we actually use this? And AI can, again, not just come up with the answers, but come up with a way to present it to you in a way that actually is actionable. It's not just a large amount of data or just a bunch of Excel sheets being thrown back at you. It's like graphs, analytics, and ways
And
to
I think
actually understand
the
it.
interaction is another value add on top of that, because you can have a report that it generates that has a whole lot of insights, but if you want to unpack it and say, well, what does it exactly mean, if you're showing me that metric? What has led to that metric? So it's almost this tool that can provide insights, but when set up the correct way, can also be maybe a conduit to a much greater understanding of your data, and you being able to say, well, explain to me why this is like this, and if we change this, how would it be, and sort of explore scenarios. That is incredibly powerful as well.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just to elaborate, this is not something that you have to be a massive organization to use or implement. This does need a huge team of people to try and understand it and understand your existing software and your existing systems to sort of integrate this AI into. There's so many great tools out there right now that can help even small businesses really untap this. This isn't something for the big tech giants anymore. This is something that is available for everyone to use. And, we've been dealing with this quite a bit recently. We understand it really well. It's a field that we're really interested in. We have practical examples of how we've been able to sort of help businesses understand, okay, this is where they are at currently, this is where we can take you. And these are the tools and softwares that can get you there. And it's such a low cost investment to apply AI in this way and to gain those insights out of it. You don't have to hire an entire company to do this for you. It's really accessible. The hard part of this, though, is understanding which tools are the best use cases to understand, where we're at right now and where we want to be and how this can help us, because the market is flooded with AI tools right now. There's a lot of shovelware out there, but there's a lot of really great tools. The shovelware offers the moon and offers you, just click on this one button and it'll just give you all these insights. And that can work to a degree, but there's two parts to it. It's really about understanding your data, understanding not just where it came from, but how it relates and where we see AI is the best fit for that use case. And then understanding with our experience, the tools that are out there, okay, which tools are best fit for this use case and where you want to take it. Is this about understanding your customers? Is it about understanding your software? Is it about understanding the security of your business? Is it about improving efficiency within your business using AI and understanding, what are the best tools to use that really is around understanding how they're actually being created. What's the back-end technologies of those tools? What were they, built upon? Understanding sort of where AI has come from, what makes AI impactful today, and that whole history, which we have a lot of experience in, is really great for us to be able to understand which are the best tools to fit these use cases.
Yeah, I'm curious about the expertise because obviously on our team we have kind of a multitude of expertise between just us three, from the design, front end, back end, now AI, and having it still be somewhat user centric is obviously very important because that's ultimately your customer who interacts with it, with whatever you're producing. But I think understanding, like, there is a lower barrier to entry now, but there is so many tools out there. What does that team look like? Is it really just we have to have, or a client should use, not just hire a back end LLM developer, but you need to hire kind of like that kind of full gambit, whether it's a consulting company like ours, or is it like you said, it could be a small team, but you have to have that ability to identify what the data is, where to find it, how to use it, how to extract it, and then implement it correctly for your
Mm.
users in order to actually get the full benefit, not just hire some back end person that just, hey,
Mm.
here's our 5 tools, use this and you'll make millions of dollars kind of thing.
It is a good question. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'd like to proceed with my business, what should you be looking for? And, I think it's a valid question, and it probably is, somewhat of a balanced team. I think what you were saying, Joe, is you don't need, a full set of staff, to come in and do this. But as you're alluding to, Makoto, you probably want someone who can understand the business that you're in to a degree. Maybe someone that has worked in similar industries and has a small team that can go from identifying the benefits of your business right down to being in the weeds and saying, right, how are we going to connect to the systems you're using? And I think that's important, and that's a caveat to a lot of that software that you're talking about as well, Joe, where you maybe are locked in to a specific offering opposed to coming from a more custom angle and saying, well, this is what your business does, this is the sort of solution that would work for you, and this is how you put it together, opposed to out of the box that may not really get you where you need to be. So,
Yeah, I almost see it as when we go into a client, we understand the best design principles. We understand how to have product strategy involved from a business side, a development side, and a consumer or user side, and putting that all together correctly, injecting the right processes so your business is
mm,
efficient at building those things. But we don't have the expertise of that given industry. And that's what we rely on the clients for. They have the expertise in the industry. So leveraging the two and having that separation definitely has a lot of benefit. And same here. Maybe we don't know exactly the data that is used, but we work with a SME or somebody that does understand, or what are the things that we try to identify, whether it's a workshop or whatever with leadership. What are the important points? What does it look like an efficient process or workflow? And how does that benefit the client overall? And tie that all
mm,
together into like creating a roadmap into what AI should do for you versus let's use anything. And then your second point with, if you're roped into like Microsoft suite or you're already roped into Salesforce, then now you're forced to use those things. We have to design dashboards that utilize those tools because they've already spent a lot of money. They're ingrained with those systems. So there are constraints, but yeah, then now you have to just use those particular tools.
Yeah, it's also just about having a beat on the AI industry in itself. It's moving so fast currently.
Hmm.
If we were to go, okay, let's hire someone who's specialized in Salesforce AI, then that's great. Our AI checkbox is ticked, right? That's not the case at all. And if you do that, I think you're actually going to be behind because those monolithic sort of software packages deploy AI at their own pace, and you just get it when they provide it. Whereas the AI space is moving so fast, unless you're kind of flexible right now and kind of quick to sort of be able to pivot and actually jump on new AI technology as it comes out, if you're not doing that, your competitors are, right? If they're that flexible, you're going to be behind. They'll be doing offerings and providing features and functionality way ahead of you because you're sort of still, trying to play catch up with whatever implementation that you're invested into, or your particular AI resource that you acquired. And, your LLM specialist who's sitting there, sort of maybe focusing on a very niche area of his knowledge. Great, that's going to help answer that one question, but AI is answering thousands of questions, and just having people understand that industry so well like we do, really tapped into it, understand what's coming out every week, what are the best tools for that use case, and to be able to pivot to sort of any question that you may have and any kind of answer that you're trying to get to, instead of just being limited to what your current capabilities are with maybe a particular software or a particular sort of specialist who's just very nichely and narrowly focused.
Yeah, well put, Joe. And I think, Makoto, to tie in what you were saying as well, is it really is kind of balancing, it's not just about AI. AI is this a very important part of the solution, but it is, how well can your business be understood by the team that you're engaging with, and connect the dots to give you a technological solution that'll actually work.
Cool.
So I'm not sure, Joe, whether there was more that you were adding on. I had another point, but I don't know whether you've got any other sections.
Yeah, that's it for me. Go for it.
Okay, something that I think we didn't touch on, which is really important, is the internal knowledge that an organization has, and how however many employees who have built up unique sets of experience, knowledge, relationships, and all of that knowledge is contained within each employee. Now, if you're starting to use technology to capture some of the more important facts or knowledge from each of those different employees, you can start building a centralized knowledge source. And the more you do that, the more you'll enable better sharing of concept or highlighting of concept or culture within those employees, using AI to obviously onboard new employees quicker. You don't have such a significant loss if someone resigns or leaves the company for some reason. And that's often overlooked because there is this investment with no documentation. So by working on a system where you're able to capture each employee's knowledge, and in an environment where they can share knowledge together, you're going to uplift all employees to a similar sort of standard by giving them access to a veteran who's documented a lot, or someone senior employee who's been documenting a lot of their experience and their insights that can immediately be transferred through to younger employees that don't necessarily have the time, maybe from more senior, to actually engage with those other employees, but it's shared through that medium of AI and through that internal knowledge. And I think that is another really valuable sort of avenue for organizations to look at and say, are we documenting our knowledge as best we can? Are we making this a living resource versus a resource that is very much contained in each and every employee?
Yeah, and just to add to that, another great benefit of using AI in that use case is, traditionally, if you want to capture internal knowledge, you'd have some sort of internal site that someone would have to write an article around, or a document, or a very lengthy process to capture knowledge that they've had. And then it would take someone to come and read that document. First of all, find that document, wherever it is stored, and then read through it and try and understand it. And if that wasn't well written, or if it was written with an expectation that the audience already knew a bunch of, the surrounding material around it to even understand what it's talking about, that becomes extremely challenging in itself. And what AI is doing is that you can extract that knowledge in a way more simple way. You don't have to write out a huge document with, perfect grammar and perfect structure and paragraphs and headings. All you want is just the knowledge that they have. It can be just a huge one giant paragraph, from your perspective, or emails that they've sent before, or any kind of documents that they've written in the past. It can all just be thrown in together into your data warehouse, and AI can extract all of that itself and understand how it all connects to each other, and understand the bigger picture of what all this data means. And so when someone asks a question, it's not just, okay, cool, well, we've got, it's data that's out there. It can understand who they are, where they are in the process of understanding that knowledge. Are they an expert user? Have they been around for 20 years? Are they someone new? And then understanding what their intent of that question is. They may not understand the knowledge well enough to even know how to phrase the question, but the AI can guide them to where they're actually trying to go. Okay, you're asking something about our sales system and you don't really understand the internal terminology that we have around our metrics. Okay, but it can see that's where the person's trying to go and it can guide them in the right path. And that facet of AI, it's not just about extracting knowledge, but about guiding someone to actually get to their answer, is just a massive sort of game changer in terms of that knowledge sharing process.
And also for multinational companies, a lot of people may not think about this, but you could have, branches in, let's say, China and, in Spain or Portugal, in South America. So you have a whole lot of different languages where you're documenting, and that is not a barrier either. You can have all these different languages translated and understood by an AI model, and being able to pick out the trends and the similarities and really report on what is common across those as well. So,
and also identifying gaps too, which we've seen before. You can sort of start understanding just based on usage and based on, the sort of questions people are asking. And if they're not getting the right answer, it can actually help identify gaps in your knowledge and where you should focus on, which is just, a huge value add to the whole process.
And as AI technology advances, I'm pretty sure companies are going to be, asking the question, well, why didn't we start documenting our internal knowledge a long time ago? Because if we had it, we would be in a situation to act upon it and make, our staff so much more efficient and our offering so much more finely attuned to what the users or customers need. So,
And
I think it's really.
and I think that's, I wouldn't hold it against a company who hasn't done that. Again, just the process of capturing knowledge. Like most people throughout the day don't have time to spend an hour or two every day sort of capturing everything that they know and what they experienced that day, and the sort of micro decisions that they've made, and where they've built up over years and years of experience. How can you capture that easily? And just AI being able to extract that so easily from a person. It doesn't have to be in a huge perfect format. It can just be small snippets of notes as they take throughout the day. That's all it needs, and they can run with it, which is that's the big game changer on that side of it.
And I think to look at those opportunities, because we've talked about things like meeting, note capturing. So where there's AI that is taking notes, even utilizing something like that in your internal knowledge base is amazing, because often their meetings are opportunities for people to share their experience and their insights, and that is all being documented. So if you had a year's worth of meetings with high level employees, you've got an amazing amount of insight and knowledge that's being shared through those, that is documented without doing anything, with automatically feeding those in to be indexed. So I think it is just limitless possibilities. And I guess looking at knowledge, like saying that your data is gold, and whether it's your data or your internal knowledge is really the value and the potential that's right under your feet.
Definitely. I think this is a good time probably to wrap up, unless you guys have anything else to add to it. But I think, we want to encourage our listeners to really think about, you can start small, and you can either audit your existing data yourself, identify those gaps, and then obviously partnering with somebody that can help you implement some AI solutions. And this really falls into some of our kind of workshop sprints that we do for our clients, where we help with leadership to do these kind of workshops in usually a quick sprint, to identify areas of where the greatest impact can be, pun intended, for your, where we can implement these kind of efficient processes, where we can improve on your data, what you have, what we can use and integrate AI into your products. And that eventually will, hopefully equate to more revenue because your customers and clients are more happier with what the output is. So I don't know. With that, I think that's a good point to wrap up, and want to thank everybody for tuning in again for our first podcast of the year, and look for us till next time. Like and subscribe as usual, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
We'll see you
everybody.
later.
Thanks a lot.